I want to start with something that might sound a little bit counterintuitive. I had a conversation with a potential client last week, high earner, six figures, solid income, and she told me she was anxious about retirement. She wanted to talk about complex investment strategies, tax optimization, all the tactical stuff. But here's the thing. When we actually dug into her situation, we discovered she already had enough to retire. So why was she still grinding? Why the anxiety? Why couldn't she see what was actually true? And the question got me thinking about something bigger. I think your money problems aren't about money at all. Look, if you're new here, I'm Justin Saffel, engineer turned trader turned investment advisor. I achieved financial independence and made work optional at age 38 and now manage over 12 million in client assets. Look, I've been around long enough to know that the information isn't the problem. We're drowning in information. If better information actually solved financial problems, everybody with a budget app and an investment account would be financially free by now, but they're not. The real issue runs deeper, way deeper. And I'm going to break down the 5 reasons why you feel anxious about money. And spoiler alert, most of them have nothing to do with your actual financial situation. So let's talk about number 1. Your past is running the show. Let's start with the foundation. Every financial decision you make passes through the lens of your past. The lens was built from your upbringing, your parents, relationship with money, pivotal moments in your life, maybe even trauma that you haven't even fully processed. My client I mentioned, turns out she had been through a separation years ago that left her feeling financially unstable. Even though she had built everything and then some, that old fear was still driving her decisions. She wasn't chasing a number, so to speak. She was chasing a feeling of safety that she had lost a long time ago. And here's what I've noticed. If you want to understand why you make the money decisions you do, look inside your past and it becomes pretty clear. But if you really want to understand your money problems, then listen to how you talk to yourself, because that internal dialogue, that's where the real patterns live. Think about it. When you look at a bank account, what's the first thing you think? Is it, I'm doing great? Or is it, I should be further ahead? Is it, I'm on track? Or is it, I'm failing? That's the voice in your head. That's the past speaking to you. And until you understand where it came from, it's going to keep running the show. And so that brings me to point number 2. Judgment keeps you stuck. So here's what I see constantly. People beating themselves up for past money mistakes. I should have known better. I can't believe I did that. I just am bad with money. And that shame creates a loop, and you feel bad about your past decisions, so you avoid looking into your finances, which leads to more mistakes, which creates more shame, and then around and around you go. But here's the thing that changed everything for me. If you understood why you made those decisions, you probably would give yourself a bit more grace. Your past conditioning created those patterns. The reality is, if you'd known better, you would have done better. You weren't being irresponsible, you were just being human. And letting yourself off the hook for those past money mistakes opens you up to find solutions now. Because when you're stuck in the mud, the worst thing you can do is keep digging. Look, I worked with somebody once who made some pretty significant financial mistakes in their 20s. Credit card debt, bad investments, the whole thing. And they spent years, literally years, in that shame spiral thinking about it. They wouldn't even open their statements because looking at the numbers felt like looking at proof of their failure. But the moment they reframed it, I made that decision best based on the information I had at the time, right? And then that shift, they could finally look at their finances without the emotional weight crushing them. And from that place of self-compassion instead of self-judgment, they actually started making better decisions. And so that brings me to point number 3. You're solving the wrong problem. This is a big one. This is where most people get stuck. My client thought her problem was retirement planning and finding the right investment strategy. It wasn't. Her problem was that she didn't feel secure even though she was. She was working nonstop, not because she needed the money, but because staying busy kept her from confronting the real issue. And when we reframe the conversation from how do I invest better to why don't I feel safe even though I am, that's when things started to shift for her. We talked about how much she actually needed to make work optional, and she realized that she already had everything she needed to be safe and secure. That anxiety turned down a little bit and started to turn into relief. The confusion started to become clarity. And here's what I've learned. Often we can't see the forest for the trees because we're standing in the forest. What we need is someone who can help us take a step back and see things for what they really are. And this happens all the time in my work. Someone comes to me saying, I need to make more money, when what they actually need is to feel like they have permission to stop. Someone says, I need a better investment strategy, when they actually need to understand that they're already on track. Someone comes to me and says, I need to budget better, when what they actually need is to stop feeling guilty about their spending. The tactical problem and the real problem are often two completely different things. And so here's my question for you. What if the financial problem you think you have isn't actually your problem? What if you're spending all your energy solving the wrong equation? And so that brings me to point number 4. Fear of judgment blocks action. You know what keeps people from getting help with their finances? It's not the lack of resources. It's not the lack of information. Mostly it's just fear. Fear that someone will judge them for their past mistakes. Fear that they'll feel stupid or irresponsible. Fear that admitting that they don't have it figured out means that they're failing. So they stay stuck. They don't reach out. They don't reach solutions. They just spin. And here's the truth. Given enough information about someone's past, you can understand why they do what they do. And when you understand, judgment fades, compassion takes place. Look, I've worked with people making $300,000 a year who had felt like failures because they didn't have a clear financial plan. And I've worked with entrepreneurs who felt ashamed because they didn't know how to optimize their taxes. And I've worked with parents who felt guilty because they were worried about funding their kids' education. And you know what? None of them were failures. None of them were stupid. They were just humans trying to figure it out and without a map. And the key to getting unstuck is to judge less, right? Is to judge less of yourself and of others. Because the moment you can look at your financial situation without shame, you can actually do something about it. And that brings me to point number 5. Better doesn't necessarily mean what you think. Most financial advice optimizes for one thing: more money. But I'd argue that the better outcome isn't just the one that produces most money. It's the one that produces the most life satisfaction. And my client could keep working 80 hours a week and accumulate more wealth, or she could recognize that she had already achieved her goal and start living differently. And that's not a financial decision. That's a life decision. And here's what I've noticed. Most people are so focused on that number, the retirement account balance, the net worth, the investment returns, that they miss the actual point. The point isn't to have the most money. The point is to have enough money so that you can stop trading your time for it. I worked with a guy who was making great money, but felt like he was on a hamster wheel. And every year he'd make more, but somehow he'd also spend more. His lifestyle would inflate to match his income. And he didn't think, okay, if I just make another $50,000 a year, I'll be okay. That's not the case here. That's really not how it works. You can't outwork that problem because the goalpost just keeps moving in that way. And so what actually changed things for him was when he reframed the question. Instead of how much more do I need to make, we asked how much is actually enough. And when he did the math, when he actually calculated what he needed to make work optional, he realized he was way closer than he had thought. He didn't need to work another 15 years. He didn't need to work another 5, maybe even less. And that's the difference between chasing a number and engineering your freedom. And so let me tie all this together because I think that there's something important underneath all of this. And that's that your money problems aren't about money because money is just a tool. It's a way to keep score, sure, but it's also a way to avoid looking at the real stuff. When you're anxious about money, you're usually anxious about something else: safety, control, self-worth, whether you're doing enough, whether you're enough. And here's the thing, no amount of optimization is going to fix that. No spreadsheet is going to make you feel secure, even if you don't believe you deserve security. No investment strategy is going to make you feel in control if you don't believe you're capable of controlling your life. This is why I always say the best financial advice has nothing to do with finances. It has to do with understanding yourself. It has to do with looking at your past and seeing how it shaped you. It has to do with giving yourself permission to be human. It has to do with reframing what's better actually means for your life. Because once you get that part right, once you understand the real problem you're solving, the financial part becomes pretty easy. And if that resonates with you at all, here's what I want you to do. Stop asking, what should I do with my money? And start asking, why do I do what I do with my money? Dig into the past a little bit. Look at the pivotal moments in your life, the influences, the beliefs that you've inherited. Understand the lens you're actually looking through. Because once you see the pattern clearly, you get something pretty powerful, and that's choice. You might get to keep doing exactly what you're doing, but it's on purpose, not on autopilot. Or you might realize that you've been chasing something you already have. Either way, you're free. And if you want help with that, if you want help and you want to actually engineer your finances so they become optional and you can design a life that you actually want, that's what we do in Financial Engineering School. We help high-performing STEM professionals just like you move from scattered to systematic, from anxious to clear, from stuck to free. And so if you've enjoyed the video, I'd welcome you to subscribe. And if you want to go deeper into that stuff, check out the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.